Shefali Karani is one of a few women who have managed to break through the glass ceiling and rise to the position of executive in India. She joins us to discuss her new book, Own It, this week on The Feminist Perspective.
The Feminist Perspective with Dr. Sophia Johnson is made possible by Hollingsworth Real Estate Group. Ask Hollingsworth about real estate. And by Allstate. You're in good hands.
Shefali Karani became an executive at Rama Phosphates, the leading manufacturer of agricultural products in India, at the age of 21. But that's not what's putting her in the headlines. She's decided to jump headfirst into one of the most intensely personal issues out there, the family business. In a new book that is already creating a buzz on social media, Shefali Karani, an Ivy League graduate, urges women to embrace their goals, go with the flow, and know when to fight in the boardroom. In the new book, Own It describes the challenges women must overcome to assume leadership roles, but also how struggles with self-confidence and bullying are unique opportunities to be a more conscious leader. Shefali Karani, welcome to The Feminist Perspective.
Thank you for having me here today, Sophia.
I'm so glad you can join us. Now, all executives make unconscious mistakes, especially when they're young. In your book, you write, in business, perfectionism is really the opposite of leadership. And I think implicit here is the fact that women often strive for perfection. But you write, strong female leadership is not this unrealistic pursuit of perfection. Rather, an authentic leader is a woman who embraces all her many facets. I think what you're really getting at here is this idea that only when we're true versions of ourselves can we empower others. When did you come to realize the true power of imperfection?
So when I was in high school, I used to be like a total perfectionist, and I really wanted things to be perfect, whether it was a school paper or whatever it was. And that kind of, made me like burn out after a while. And I was just like, one day I was writing a paper, it was 2:00 at night, and I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm tired. I need to like stop doing this because it's not good for my health. And obviously, this is not going to accomplish anything in the long run.
Right.
So eventually, once I got past that point, when I was at Drexel doing my undergraduate degree over there, I kind of learned how to embrace my imperfections.
Nice.
And once I did that, I kind of achieved all these different things, whether it was like being on the dean's list, graduating cum laude with distinction, all those great things. So once I kind of accepted that fact that imperfections are okay, then it just kind of worked out for me. It gave me that confidence boost that, you need to believe in yourself. And that's really what it all comes down to, is believing in yourself. That's what I learned from imperfections.
Nice. Now tell me some of the common mistakes of young leaders in the boardroom. When you first arrived, what were some of the common mistakes that you made?
Right. So one of the first mistakes I made was I didn't dress like an executive. I was just dressing like someone who was sitting there on the sidelines. People, of course, didn't take me seriously because they're looking at this young woman at work who just graduated, and they're like, I don't really know if I should talk to her, if she's really important, and what is she doing here, because she's the boss's daughter, right? So they don't take you seriously. But once I kind of dressed up the way I was supposed to as an executive, people then started taking me seriously. They're like, yes, she's the boss. She's in charge over here, and she's going to help us out with everything.
Right. So dressing for success is certainly one strategy.
Yes.
In terms of leadership. Any other tips?
Also, like I mentioned before, confidence. So my dad, he's a really great example. He just exudes confidence. Like when he walks into the room, even if he's like in a restaurant, having lunch on Sunday in his shorts and like a normal shirt, people will still look at him, because of the way he walks, the way he talks, the presence when he enters a room, people just want to talk to him.
Right.
And when I see that, I'm like, I want to be like that too, have that confidence, and show that to everyone.
Well, how do you channel that energy, in all your youthfulness in the boardroom? How do you channel this energy? I think one of the big takeaways from the book is this idea that you make a lot of mistakes. I think readers and people who are thinking about moving into this space want to know, what does imperfection look like? What are some of the mistakes that you made, and how do you channel this confidence, this confident woman that you are today? Where did this come from?
Right. So, like I mentioned that before, another example would be, like I mentioned, believing in yourself. But because I didn't believe in myself at first, especially at work, since people were, criticizing me, they were trying to tell me that, I don't belong here, maybe people outside of work or whatever it was. And I just took that so personally in the beginning. But once I kind of put that aside and I saw that people at work were actually trying to help me, and it was just their way of showing that they wanted to help me, support me. Maybe it wasn't the way I wanted, but that's the mistake I made, was not listening to them at first. But once I started listening to them and using that criticism to make me a better executive and even like a better person, then everyone was like, okay, fine, we're going to continue helping you out. And of course, I also helped the company out with that as well.
Right, very nice. I mean, one of the other things that I recognize in this book, Own It also explores the leadership styles of women. And I think that it's really interesting here, especially taking on a leadership role in India, for example. We know accomplished women face pervasive bias in the workplace and certainly in the boardroom. Both men and women are treated very differently. You can have a situation where a man is doing the exact same thing as a woman and people will find him very likable, and a woman does this very same thing and she's perceived as unlikable. So even with these identical leadership styles and identical actions, we tend to judge women more harshly. Would you agree that the boardroom judges women's leadership style more harshly? And is it a different type of experience in India, or you think that just globally this is what's happening?
Well, I mean, I've seen it everywhere, like for work, that especially, when I first started out at work, people were like, okay, she's the boss's daughter, I'm not going to take her seriously, especially during board meetings. I would have like meetings where people would actually completely ignore me, even though I was so confident, and they would just go straight to my dad and talk to him. But once I started talking to my dad, then they started talking to me.
Right.
So, and of course, when I first joined work, there was a time, when we were having a board meeting, one of the directors actually told me that, oh, you have a woman director here. Like, what is she doing here?
Wow.
Like, I was just like shocked, and my dad was like, she actually does work over here, this is what she does. And then they were like, oh, okay. Then their attitude kind of changed. But people, I believe, some people are just unprepared for it, but you're going to face criticism from anyone in life, I believe. It's just, as long as you kind of believe in yourself, you show that confidence to people, then you're not really going to have a problem dealing with that.
Would you agree the boardroom judges women's leadership more harshly, especially in a place like India? In a country, I shouldn't say place, especially in a country like India.
Okay. Yes, I do feel that that does happen, but it can happen anywhere in the world. And, I've seen there's sometimes, like once this guy, he came for a meeting to our company, and he was talking to everyone, and he just kind of ignored me the whole time till the very end, till the moment I started talking to my dad. And once he saw me talking to my dad, then he started talking to me. So it was kind of hilarious because, there I was, an executive representing the company along with my dad, and he just completely ignored me. But that wasn't the first time that happened, and it's not the last. I just, don't take it personally. It's just that sometimes people may not understand, and they may be, looking for someone else or whatever it is. And, especially being at my age at the time, they may not really take you so seriously until that moment.
Right. And how should women handle that? So we might not have a dad in the boardroom meeting with us.
Of course. I mean, I really think you need to have confidence in yourself, really believe in yourself, and especially when you're going into a boardroom, really act and behave like the executive or whoever you're supposed to be, whatever your role is during that meeting, and then it will come across to that person that this is who you are, and you don't need to do and say anything. It will just come through like that.
Right, very good. Now, the other thing is a large percentage of women, and I'm sure you're confronted by this in India, throughout South Asia, really anywhere, a large percentage of women are paid far less for doing the very same job as men. And while steps must be taken to ensure equal pay for equal work, I think women must also know and communicate their worth, whether asking for a better financial package or standing up and facing a discriminatory situation at work. When, or rather, how did you come to realize your own worth?
So I kind of realized my own worth throughout the years, when I was doing all these various projects in the company. And of course, with my MBA and bachelor's degree from Drexel and getting the CIBE from Columbia Business School, I was at that point, achieving all of those things that I really felt that, okay, this is my worth. I'm really well educated. I know what I'm doing, and I've been here for really long. I can definitely do this. This is what I'm meant to do. And it wasn't just, handed to me over on a silver platter. That's what some people might think, that it's a family business, so it was just given to me. But
Right.
no, I had to really prove myself, that, I had to graduate with honors from Drexel during my undergraduate years. I had to really do my best, no matter what, whether it was at work, at home, or even at school, all the time.
Wow, that's amazing. So how do you deal with, so just an extension of that very same conversation, how do you deal with discrimination? Whether it's around gender or, how do you deal with this issue in the workplace of discrimination? And how should women sort of tackle that?
So at the workplace, basically, you shouldn't take it personally. I've learned that throughout the years, that whenever someone says something to you about whatever it is, it's probably because of something they're dealing with, and it's something that bothers them. And I really feel that if you talk to them, you can kind of resolve the issue. Most of the times, it can just be like a misunderstanding, like how that guy, who came for the meeting and he just kind of, forgot about me, basically.
Right.
It was a misunderstanding, right?
Yeah.
And it can happen all the time, and you just have to be prepared for it, especially being a woman. It's just something you have to deal with almost every single day.
Right, so you try not to be too emotional.
Right.
Right, I think it's probably the same in a lot of different industries as well. And your mother is also an executive. How does she pass on any strategies or tips for how to behave in this space? How did you learn to cultivate this leadership style that you have?
So actually, my mother and my dad were really good mentors for me throughout work, and they've been really supportive, especially my husband. They've all been really supportive, and they know how hard it is that I have to travel all the time, going for work, because especially since I stay in Dubai right now, it's not easy to do that, and it's kind of like a balancing act. You have like all these social requirements, you have household work, you have work requirements. And
you have household work? What's the household work?
Well, I mean, of course, like sometimes, you have to just, take care of just routine things at home. And it doesn't just magically happen by itself, right? Of course, along with some help.
Sure.
But it's just something that I personally have to do. And it's just been, in the beginning, it was a little bit of a struggle, especially when I got married. It was a real balancing act for me, because I didn't really have an office in Dubai, and I was like, I need to figure out where I'm going to have this office space. Am I going to have it at home? Am I going to actually create a new office? Eventually, I kind of figured out what I wanted. So I work remotely, basically, wherever I feel like, mostly from a home office.
Nice.
And it worked out for me. But I still attend meetings, so it was great.
Yeah.
It's good.
I think one of the other things that you write about in this book that I really, really think will resonate with a lot of people, and I want you to dig deep here. You write about going with the flow, and I certainly agree. I think flexibility is certainly one of the key skills that we need in terms of cultivating leadership. And I think women tend to, another important point here is that women tend to outperform men academically and early in their careers, but few happen to make it to the highest ranks as you have. What do you think happens? You're not surrounded by an awful lot of women in the boardroom. Where are they? What's really happening here? If we're achieving academically, why is it, we're trying to go with the flow? What's not happening here?
Well, for me personally, after getting married, that was an issue I faced, was flexibility. I had to figure out, like I mentioned before, how to balance these three things, because it's not easy. You have to go for family events and whatnot, and then still continue doing your work. And I really, the struggle that I faced, especially right now when I was writing this book and trying to juggle these other three things as well, it was just like an addition to whatever was going on, right? So I think, personally speaking, it just, for other women, maybe they should just, learn to be a little bit more flexible. And I know it takes a lot of hard work, and it's not easy to do everything all at once because people just think we're like superwoman and we're just going to get everything done. I think that pressure really, starts to affect you after a while. And I know it did affect me in the beginning when I first moved back to Dubai. It was really hard for me, to kind of grasp that fact and say that, okay, I'm not going to be working in a corporate office anymore. I'm going to be working from home or from a cafe.
Yeah.
But once I kind of realized that I want to continue working because I'm so passionate about it, I'm so, I really want to continue making an impact in what I do.
Right.
Especially since I have such a great opportunity, to help others. I was like, I need to do this. This is something that's my calling. It's what I need to do. It's my purpose.
Right. So you probably are familiar with the work of Sheryl Sandberg. She writes an awful lot about women leaning into the corporate space. And you also write about going with the flow. Is leaning in the same as going with the flow?
So I actually read that book quite a while ago, and if I remember correctly, she mentioned that her husband was like a great support system for her. I completely agree with that because my husband's a really great support system. Even before we got married, he knew that this is who I am and this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to continue, working for my family, traveling and all that stuff. So he was really supportive throughout. But sometimes, we did face criticism from other people. They may not always be very supportive, but my husband was like, no, it's okay. Just do what you like because I know you're really passionate about your work and this is what you want to do and you are going to make a really big impact in life.
Very nice. Now, how are you advocating for women in the corporate space? How are you advocating for women in your firm? How are you advocating for women in the business community?
So basically, at work, if there's any other woman at work, we're really supportive of each other. That's what we do, especially me and my mother. We tend to do that. And, I really feel that my family, they've always treated like me and my sister as equals, and that's what they do for everyone else. They treat everyone as equals at work. So that's not really the issue there. We're pretty good at that. Recently, I got to go to Drexel University just actually a few days ago to speak to the Drexel Women in Business over there. And I got to talk about my book and everything, and I got to also mentor some of the honor program students there. So that's something that I really like to do. I like mentoring students. Especially at Drexel and even at Columbia Business School while I was there, I got to be a part of the Women in Leadership program, actually where we met.
Yeah.
And, after that, I kind of joined the Women's Circle group that they have over there. And they have a lot of outreach programs and I'm still involved in that.
Very nice. Now, I'm getting the signal that we're running a little bit out of time, so I have one final question, and this is really the big one, and for you especially. How do you create an authentic voice in a family-run business? And this really is a question about how you follow a unique leadership path, or how you create a unique leadership path. And certainly if you're walking the steps of your father and mother, as you've mentioned, if your parents, and with so many others around you, how do you navigate this space?
So like I mentioned before, it would be just trying to constantly prove yourself, but not for anyone else. I've always just done it for myself, whether it was getting the CIBE from Columbia Business School or whether graduating cum laude from Drexel. So it's just constantly proving yourself and constantly believing in yourself and just keep on moving forward, like going with the flow and, all those things. That's really what it boils down to is who is your biggest support system? It's you at the end of the day, right? There's no one else that's going to support you. It's not going to be anyone else. And as long as you believe in yourself, everyone else is going to automatically believe in you if you exude that confidence and just keep on moving forward with everything.
Shefali Karani, thank you for coming to The Feminist Perspective. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
The Feminist Perspective with Dr. Sophia Johnson is made possible by Hollingsworth Real Estate Group. Ask Hollingsworth about real estate. And by Allstate. You're in good hands.